The Forest. Chances are if you're into survival games you've played it or at least heard about it before, and for good reason. The Forest put an amazing spin on the survival game genre and introduced some amazing features that not many other games had at its time of release. The developers were a small indie game company called End Night Games. They set out to make the best game they could with just a $125,000 budget, and it's needless to say that they succeeded because The Forest has sold more than 5 million copies to date. And I know the sequel Sons of the Forest has been out for a year now. I thought it would be cool to take a look back at the original game and see what made it so good in the first place. The game starts out with you sitting on a plane with your son Timmy at your side. The plane then strangely crashes down onto a place called the Peninsula. You wake up to find that Timmy has been kidnapped by this strange looking dude, and you've got to find a way to get him back. In order to do this, you'll have to brave the wilderness and learn to survive in this hostile world. And hostile it is because the wildlife in the forest isn't exactly what you would expect from most other survival games. There's a whole variety of messed up things that want to kill you. The main enemies you will come across in the forest are the cannibals, and these guys are no joke. They are strong, fast, attacking groups, and are extremely good at making really fucked up noises. You will encounter them all over the map. Sometimes there's just a couple running around in the woods stalking you, and then other times there's a huge mob of them stampeding towards you out of nowhere. In order to defend yourself against these things, you will need to learn to craft weapons and tools. The crafting system in this game is really unique. Everything you've collected gets laid out in a pack in front of you, and you can combine different items together to make new ones. Spears, clubs and bow and arrows are some of the go-tos and can keep you alive for the first few nights. Luckily, the peninsula also has some more normal creatures that you can hunt to stay alive, such as the humble lizard. Just hit that thing on the head, throw it on the fire, and you're good to go. But of course you'll need more than just a stick with a skull on it to keep you going when there's cannibals around. So it's probably best to build some sort of shelter. Luckily the game has a survival book filled with different buildings to make. The forest building mechanics are awesome. You have complete freedom to build whatever you want, wherever you want it. The structures range from small prefab huts to enormous completely custom made fortresses. Whether your build holds up against the enemies of the game all depends on how smart you were with the construction of it. Maybe you'll build up in a tree or on a lake. I mean, surely that's got to be safe, right? Well, it's probably not, and that's the real beauty of this game. You never know what's about to happen, even when you think you've built the most indestructible base imaginable, even when you've got all the best gear, even when you've thought you've seen it all. You're still in immediate danger all of the time, and there's something in that makes playing the forest always enjoyable. As you progress further through the game, you start to realise there's a lot more out there than just the friendly cannibals. There's also a variety of really overpowered mutant abominations that can seriously mess up your day. The first time you see one of these spider things in your game, I can almost guarantee you that you will say something along the lines of, "What the fuck is that?" These things can jump around at the speed of light and almost one-shot you no matter what armor you have. Not to mention that all of the mutants in this game are extremely buggy, which makes them even harder to kill. But at least if you do manage to take down one of these things, you can choose to hack it apart and make some extremely fashionable armor. But wait, where did these things come from? And what even are they? As you start uncovering the game's secrets and get closer to finding your son Timmy, you'll start to realise there's a lot more going on here than you originally thought. To get to the bottom of this, you'll have to venture down into some of the forest's huge enemy-ridden cave systems. Obviously these caves are no walk in the park either, so you will need to be well equipped before you go anywhere near them. But teaming up with friends and heading down into these caves was one of the funnest things to do in the entire game. You will have to climb, swim and fight your way through them if you want to get to the best gear and finish the story. Also, walking around using lighters to see and not knowing what the fuck could be around the next corner showed that the forest is indeed a survival horror game. While working your way through these caves, you can find clues leading to Timmy's whereabouts. And a quick warning, there will be spoilers ahead, as this next part will be heavily focused around the game's story. At some point in the game you will end up at this, a big ass hole in the ground. This is where the game sort of ends. After you've got geared up from completing the caves I mentioned earlier, you will need to make your way to the bottom of this hole. Here is where you will find the secret laboratory and the game's story will be explained. This laboratory was created by a company called Sahara. in order to conduct research on 2 ancient artifacts thought to have been left on the peninsula centuries ago by a lost civilization. This research was led by a guy named Dr. Cross, and Dr. Cross believed that one of these artifacts could heal terminally ill children and bring the dead back to life. Cross's daughter Megan and other young test subjects were brought to the peninsula facility, and Dr. Cross began his research. This research, however, would prove to not work out so well, as the children did not heal whatsoever and started turning into these fucked up mutants that we see throughout the game. These mutants would eventually trash most of the lab and kill most of the people in it, including Dr. Cross's daughter Megan. Cross was then determined to use the resurrection artifact to bring Megan back to life, but in order to do this, the machine needed a live child to sacrifice. To get this sacrifice, Cross used the other artifact, which is more or less just a big gun, and brings down a passenger plane, the plane being the one you were on, obviously. And remember the weird guy at the start of the video that kidnapped Timmy? Yep, that's Dr. Cross, and he wants to use Timmy as his sacrifice. Once you make your way through the lab and find the resurrection machine, you open it up and find Timmy dead inside of it. Dr. Cross had gone ahead with his plan and sacrificed him to bring Megan back to life. But once again, things hadn't gone accordingly. The machine had worked, Megan was alive, but she wasn't the same. She was now half person, half super mutant. She also ends up killing Dr. Cross at some point, which was made apparent by finding him in this drunken state. Further in the lab, you will find and fight Megan before placing her back inside the resurrection machine, an attempt to try and bring Timmy back to life. But of course, this doesn't fucking work, so then you're faced with a decision. Do you use the second machine, the big gun, to shoot down another plane and steal someone else's kid to use the resurrection machine, or do you forget about Timmy and move on with your life? The canon answer is shooting the plane down. After this happens, the game will jump ahead by a year, and this cutscene will play. You and Timmy are now on a talk show, and about to showcase your survival skills and show how you made it out of the forest. But something's wrong with Timmy. He starts shaking and showing symptoms similar to that of which Megan had right before she turns into a mutant. The game then jumps ahead again, and we are now in the shoes of Timmy. He's in an apartment, and on the right you can see a map of quote-unquote Site 2, which is the island in the second game, Sons of the Forest. Overall, I think both the story and the gameplay in the forest is great. It's such a unique game, and it was cool to look back on, especially now that the sequel has been out for some time. Even though the game is definitely showing its age in places, it's still just as fun to play today as it was years ago. And this game really did revolutionize the survival game industry. So yeah, I'd recommend you give it a try if you've never played it before, and definitely play this original one before you play Sons of the Forest. And lastly, to finish up, if you did enjoy this video, please consider subscribing, as I'm a brand new channel and just one extra sub can help me out heaps. Thanks for watching, and I hope I see you in the next one.